In this video, we are talking about stem cells. We can call a cell a stem cell when it has two properties. One is self-renewal and the other is potency. Self-renewal means it can renew itself as well as produce another type of cells. So, the self-renewal is a must property for a stem cell. And potency means the ability of forming different kinds of cells. If it can produce many new types of cell, that means it has high potency. And if it can produce only few types of cell, that means it has low potency. But still it is a stem cell. So there are few types of stem cells. The most potent stem cell is Totipotent stem cells. It has the highest potency. After this comes the pluripotent stem cell, which has a little less potency. Then comes the multipotent stem cell, which has lesser potency. Then comes oligopotent stem cells, and the last is the unipotent stem cells. So we will talk about them separately. So first comes the totipotent stem cell. It has the highest potency among all the stem cells. The example of totipotent stem cell can be zygote and spores. That means a totipotent cell can give rise to the whole organism. A spore of a sponge can give rise to a whole sponge. And a zygote of human can give rise to a whole living human. So the totipotent cell have the ability to give rise to a whole living organism. So if we talk about the formation of a living human being, it starts when an ovum meets a sperm and forms a zygote, the first totipotent cell of a human. So this zygote will divide and make more cells, and it will give rise to two types of cells. One type of cell that I am drawing in green will give rise to the extra embryonic membrane to protect the embryo. But this kind of cell cannot make the embryo. And the another type of cell that is given rise by the zygote is the inner cell mass I have drawn in black. And these cells can give rise to the embryo. And these cells are also another type of stem cells, pluripotent cells or pluripotent stem cells. These stem cells will give rise to the embryo, and the green type of cell will give rise to the extra embryonic membrane. So this is the extra embryonic membrane which is protecting the embryo and giving the nutrition to the embryo. So this is the extra embryonic membrane. And it will also form the chorionic villi, which will help the embryo to implant in the uterine wall of the mother. So, the totipotent stem cell, the highest potent stem cell, can give rise to both the extra embryonic membrane and the cells to produce the embryo's body parts. That is the inner cell mass. So, the cells of inner cell mass are also a type of stem cell. They are called pluripotent stem cells. They have a little less potency than totipotent stem cells as they cannot give rise to the extra embryonic membrane, but only the body parts of the embryo. So, unlike the totipotent stem cell zygote, these pluripotent stem cells can only give rise to the body parts of the embryo or the baby, but it cannot give rise to a whole living baby as it cannot make the extra embryonic membrane to give protection to the embryonic stage of the baby. So this is the pluripotent stem cell, and it can give rise to all types of germ layers, that is ectoderm, mesoderm and endoderm. So it can give rise to all the cells of all the germ layers. Now the germ layer cells which has grown from the pluripotent stem cell can now give rise to the organs of the human. The ectoderm cells can give rise to some specific organs of the human body, such as the skin and the hair. The skin and the hair is formed by the ectodermic cells, and they form the outer lining of the human body. The mesoderm cells can give rise to some specific organs, such as the bones, all types of blood cells, that is the blood, and it can give rise to the heart and the heart muscles. It also gives rise to the muscles, that is the skeletal muscle of our body. So the muscle cells are also formed by the mesodermal cells. From the endoderm cells, we get some other organs such as the stomach, the liver, the pancreas, the intestine, both the small and large intestine, and all those organs related to the digestive system. So different germ layer cells gives rise to different organs of the body. So the pluripotent stem cell ultimately gives rise to all the organs of the human body. There are some stem cells present in the organs also. So we will talk about the next type of stem cell which has lesser potency than pluripotent stem cells. They can give rise to a large variety of cells, but they cannot give rise to all the organs of the body. So these are the multipotent stem cells. One type of multipotent stem cell is found in the bone marrow. There is a multipotent stem cell present in the bone marrow which gives rise to all the blood cells. The two properties of stem cell is present in this cell. That is, it can self-renew itself and it can give rise to different kinds of cells. All the blood cells are given rise by this multipotent stem cell. All the blood cells include the platelets, RBCs, monocytes, neutrophils, eosinophils, basophils, natural killer cells, T cells, and B cells. So all the blood cells are given rise by this multipotent stem cell. The multipotent stem cell can give rise to the blood cells with the help of another two stem cells called the myeloid progenitor and the lymphoid progenitor. These two are also stem cells. These two types of stem cells have lesser potency than multipotent cells, as they cannot give rise to all the blood cells. They can only give rise to some of the blood cells. So these stem cells are called oligopotent stem cells. They can self-renew itself, and the myeloid progenitor gives rise to some of the blood cells such as platelet, RBC, monocyte, eosinophil, basophil, and neutrophil, and lymphoid progenitor gives rise to NK cells, T cells, and B cells, but not all the blood cells. So they can only give rise to some of the blood cells. That's why they are oligopotent stem cells. Now, the last type of stem cell which has the least potency is the unipotent stem cells. They have the least potency, so they can only give rise to one kind of cells. They can self-renew themselves, that's why they are stem cells. And they can give rise to only one type of different cell. So, the example of unipotent stem cell is the stem cells found in the skin, the basement membrane of the epidermis. So, these stem cells of the epidermis can give rise to the skin cells, as it can give rise to only one type of cell, that is skin cell. That's why it is a unipotent stem cell. So one example of totipotent stem cell is zygote. Pluripotent stem cell example is the inner cell mass present in the blastula stage of embryogenesis. The example of multipotent stem cell can be the multipotent stem cell present in the bone marrow that gives rise to the blood cells. So it is called the erythropoietic stem cell. It is the example of multipotent stem cell. It can give rise to two another types of stem cells. Those are oligopotent stem cells, that is myeloid progenitor and lymphoid progenitor cells, which can give rise to only some of the blood cells but not all the blood cells. So they are oligopotent stem cells. And the example of unipotent stem cell is found in the skin. In the epidermis of the skin, the basement membrane of the epidermis contains a type of stem cell which gives rise to the only one type of cell, that is skin cell. So these are examples of the unipotent stem cells. Now let's do a quick recap of what the stem cells are. The totipotent stem cells give rise to the inner cell mass for the formation of the embryo and the extraembryonic membrane for the protection of the embryo. So the totipotent stem cell gives rise to the extraembryonic membrane plus the embryo that will give rise to the full living animals or plants. The second type of pluripotent stem cell gives rise to the ectoderm, mesoderm and endodermal cells, and it can form the full embryo or all the tissue and organs of the body. The third type of stem cell is the multipotent stem cell. An example of multipotent stem cell can be the multipotent heme cell, that means it gives rise to the blood cells. So these kind of multipotent cells gives rise to all the blood cells, RBC, WBC and platelets. And the next type of stem cell is the oligopotent stem cell, and an example of it is the lymphoid progenitor cell, which can give rise to some of the blood cells, that is NK cells, T cells and B cells, some types of WBC, not all the blood cells. And the last type is a unipotent stem cell. The example of this can be skin stem cells, which only gives rise to skin cell, only one type of cell. So this was all about the types of stem cells.